Good morning, folks. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Message Talk Show. Welcome to the Message Talk Show with host Alex Gordon, broadcasting all the way from London. So you could be in Jamaica. You could be in the Caribbean, Africa. You could be in Australia. So depending on where you are today, it's good morning, good afternoon. And if you're in Australia, it's good night. Do you know, I had someone reach out to me the other day and said, you did not welcome people from Leicester. Can you believe it? I said, welcome to everybody. And they reached out and said to me, you didn't welcome people from Leicester. So, hey, guys, welcome wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Message Talk Show podcast. Today, we have a very special guest in-house, and we're talking about how to grow high achievers in our education system, because we're questioning the growth of high achievers. We need to see it happen. But before I bring my guest in today, I want to tell you today that we, the Message Talk Show, believe in passionate individuals. We believe that passionate and mission-centered individuals will bring change into this world. We also believe that if you have something to offer, something to give, then you need to open your mouth. This is the time to start speaking. This is the time to get your message out. So we work with educators, we work with consultants, we work with coaches, content creators to go from unknown to unforgettable just by getting your message out. So if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, or you have just an idea connecting in your head, connect with us. We'll help you craft your message. Touch base with us at masteryourmessage.co.uk. The Message Talk Show broadcasts on a Thursday at 11 o'clock each week. If you can't tune in live, tune into the replay. The replay is always there. So here's what you do right now. Press the share button. Press the share button, get the message out, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea. And now we're going to bring in our guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome into the show today, the Message Talk Show, Yemi. Yemi is coming to us with a wealth of educational knowledge, educational understanding, because she is the founder of the High Achievers Academy. She is an education consultant. She is someone who believes very passionately about growing people, growing young children, growing young people to their highest potential. Can you believe that, folks? Hey, so put your hands together and welcome to the show. Yemi, hi, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you. And yourself, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. This morning, I am fine. And, you know, I understand that you've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. 4 a.m. this morning, preparing your mind, preparing your body, preparing everything for the contribution that you're making today. Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely.
So you're ready? Yes?
4, actually, not 4 o'clock. I woke up at half past 4. I woke up about 4:30, and then I left home around about 5:45 or somewhere thereabouts to go for my long walk. But yeah.
To go for your long walk. All right, that's my correction. So before we jump into the interview, let me just bring our sponsor on from Master Your... You are listening to the Message Talk Show and podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and podcast with host Alex Gordon. So as I said earlier, Yemi is the CEO. No, we haven't brought you on the show to make you relax, you know. We're going to work today. For the next 30 minutes, you are going to work. We are going to drain you of all the information and knowledge you're going to push out to the broadcaster. You know, what do they say? They said there's about, 7 billion people across the world? Man, we're talking to all of them today. Do you hear that, Yemi? We're talking to all of them today. So,
Yemi, I'm ready.
Yemi is the CEO and founder of the High Achievers Academy. She's an education consultant, an advocate for education, and she's also a lawyer. This woman is busy. This lady is busy. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. My wife said, don't use the word lady. Yemi is a very busy person. So, Yemi.
Hi, everyone.
What's the story behind the High Achievers Academy?
Well, first of all, I want to say good morning to everyone. I think it's still morning or afternoon or evening, wherever they are.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, because this is the only way we can get a message out and the message across to absolutely everyone wherever you are. Now, let's go back to your question. What's the story behind high achievers? It's very simple. It's empowerment. That's the long and short answer. Empowerment. I believe in empowerment. I believe every child should be given a chance, should be given an opportunity, regardless of who they are, where they're from, whatever their background is, whatever their color is. I think every child deserves to have the best. And I believe every child is a high achiever. Now, saying that, someone will say, oh, my child's got special needs. He's still a high achiever. She's still a high achiever. They do things that we cannot do. I think we're the ones with the special needs, to be fair. But yes, the story behind, yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on. No, you're jumping. Go ahead.
Okay. The story behind high achievers is very simple. In England, if you do not walk as a black person, if you do not walk twice as much as your peers, your English peers, your white peers, you might have an issue. Now, how do we combat that? Education. Mandela said something. The key to success is education. That's empowerment. Now, I believe every child should be given that opportunity. And we live in a country where it's free. So really, what's stopping you from accessing that? Now, this is where I'm going to be very brutal, and I'm going to be talking to parents. Now, if the norm is that every child has the opportunity to go to school, why then is your child dropping out from school? You need to put your foot down. You need to let them know that regardless of what they read about Richard Branson and Bill Gates dropping out of school, it's a totally different story. And they didn't necessarily drop out. You have to really read that story properly. Your child needs to complete their education. They need to go to good schools. They need to go to the best schools. The question is, how do you access this? Am I saying the state schools are not good enough? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they go to the good schools within your area, outside of your area. Do not relax. Do not rest on your comfort zone. Do not say, because this school is just down the road, that's the one I'm going for. No way. There are schools all over the country. Look for those schools, wherever they are. If it means traveling, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, go for it. Everything is for a season. This will pass. They will go to that school for a period of time and it will end. I'll give you an example about mine. I was talking to my son yesterday and he said to me, he said, Mom, I'd like to go back to my reception school where he had his reception class. He'd like to go back and look at the school photos on the wall, that he would like to connect with the kids that they were in reception together. Now, we live in Raynham, Essex. This school is all the way in South Kensington. So that means if he was in reception, he was, 4 years old? And he had to go to school there, which meant I had to travel. Now, today, obviously, he's a graduate, he's doing well and stuff like that. It meant it took sacrifice. We as parents need to sacrifice. And parents is not an old person. Parents are young people too. So I'm talking to literally everyone. And even if you're not a parent now, you will be one day, or you might have to support your family member or whatever it is, in terms of even giving them this information, how they should do the best for their child. Now, I've got some stats here, which I'm just going to really read out. I'm not going to waste time because I know we haven't got much time. 51% of children between the ages of 15 to 17-year-olds, BAME children, are in prison. That's boys and girls. 51%. You can check it out. Now, if 51% of that age group is in prison, what are we doing? 51% of 15 to 17-year-olds need to be in school. That's school age. 15 is year 10, 11. 17 is year 11, 12, or 12, 13, somewhere thereabouts. So really, they really ought to be at school. Why are they in prison? Nobody hijacked them to put them in prison. It would have been things that they had been doing that had landed them in that situation. Now, my question is, where are the parents in all of this? Where are the carers? Where are the foster parents, whoever it is that is supposed to be responsible for that age group? Because that age group is still a child. You do not become an adult until you're 18 in this country, I want to believe. So 15 to 17-year-olds really ought to be at school. Why are they in prison? And that breaks my heart because I have 4 children. They've all been through 15 to 17-year-olds. The youngest now is 22, going 23. So the question is, how do we stop this from happening? That's where high achievers comes in. You need to seek help. You need to find whatever it is that your child needs to be doing so that they escape that route of going to prison.
Okay,
So,
let me stop you there, Yemi, because obviously something has been instilled in you that's released itself into high achievers. I want to go back to that root. Where has this come from? Something has been instilled in you that is so passionate now that you're driving it with a force. Where has this come from?
Well, basically to make sure my children don't end up in that category, that percentage that we just talked about. So when they were growing up, it wasn't fun and games, put it that way. It was not fun and games. It was making sure they had the best. And how do you have this? It was the local schools. But as they went to the local schools, I had to put in extra hours. I put in extra time into their education. I would sit down and I would work with them. Of course, because of what I did, some people then saw what I was doing with my kids, that they were top in the class, they were doing so well. And friends said to me that, well, look, Yemisi, if you're doing this for your kids, how not do it for our kids? I mean, can you do this? I went, okay, why not? And that's it. High Achievers was born. I started High Achievers with 4 children, including mine, one of my daughters, and 3 other young people. 2 of the, in fact, the 3 other people, one of them is a medical doctor now. She's married with 2 kids. One of them owns his own businesses. He runs the Subway. He's got 2 franchises out there. The other one is a senior manager in the HR department. Now, it wasn't easy, definitely, because at that age, I mean, dragging them wherever they live, dragging them to me to have these classes, it was not easy. But those were the sacrifices that parents made. It's all about sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. By the time these kids were 7, I've gotten them writing exams. There's something called the 7+ exams. I've gotten them writing exams. They wrote their 7+ exams. They passed it. I said to the moms, well, I'm not sending mine. I just needed to know that I was doing the right thing with my kids. So all the moms said, well, they're not going to do it. That, we continue doing it. By 11+, they wrote the 11+ exams. Well, the rest is history. They're all where they are now. I mean, my daughter who joined us then was a HSBC scholar. The bank actually gave her a scholarship. So those things are available. You have to prepare your child. So even if you're going to access the independent schools, because some of these kids went to independent schools, including mine. If you're going to access those schools, if you're going to access the grammar schools, it requires work. So it's not about, oh, I've got a smart kid, he's first in the class, he's top in the class. Trust me, the question is, who is your child being compared to? If your child is top in the class, you have to then ask yourself, what's the comparison? Who are you comparing him to? Who are you comparing him to? So the question is, continue to assess your child, continue to work with your child. What I used to do, I would have them write exams, even if they're not going to go to that school. By writing exams meant they were being assessed alongside other children who go to the top schools. So that way you actually know, the ability of your child. Not every child, believe me, listen to this, not every child is going to go to the independent school. Not every child is going to go to university. I accept that and I understand that. But let's give them that opportunity first. Let's find out if they're deemed to go, if they're fit to go, and if they're fit to go, let them go.
But the starting point here, because you just mentioned that at the very beginning, you put a lot of work into your children, a lot of work into these young people to get them to take those exams. Now, Absolutely. What if you are, as a parent, aren't able to be able to work with your kids in that way, because the information the information you're using is probably a much higher level then? How can the parent still contribute to the child in that way?
Good question. Well, one of the things that parents usually say to me, oh, it's too expensive, for them to have tuition. Then I ask them this question, do they get child benefit? The answer is, oh yeah, right, okay. So that benefit is for the child. So in that case, if the children get child benefit, even if you're not paying for tuition, spend that money getting them books. Books, you cannot go wrong with books. Litter the house with books. Enroll yourself at your local library. They're allowed to borrow, I believe, up to 5, 6, 7 books. Borrow books. Get them reading books. But aside of that, what is most important is actually spending time with them. It's actually sitting down with them. I mean, as parents, we have to work. I get that. But guess what? The beautiful thing is we have what is called flexi working. We have what is called part-time working. Those were the options I had to go for. I was working full-time with a bank. I quit my full-time job and I went part-time. So I changed my hours to 10 to 2, which meant I would comfortably drop my children at school and then get to work to start for 10. I would leave at 2 so I can comfortably pick up my children, because there's no point me taking on a childminder that I'm going to be paying that extra money to. So let me keep that money so I can save that money and use that money to improve my children's lives.
Wow.
If it's books I had to buy, then it's books that I had to buy. If it's taking them to the museum, it's taking them to the museum. Those things are free. We need to access all these things that are available to us and not just take them for granted. The Science Museum, the History Museum, they're all out there. They're free. You go in there, you learn stuff. I remember when I took my son to one of those museums, he'd just come back from one of his interviews. And as he walked in, he stood in front of something that I wasn't even aware of. I was just looking around. We went for another interview the following week, and guess what was given to him? He was given a photo of exactly what he had seen at the Science Museum and told him to explain what's going on in there. Wow. As soon as he came out of that interview, he said, "Mom, you won't believe what just happened." I said, "What is it?" He told me exactly what happened. Now, if I hadn't taken him to that museum, he probably would have been able to answer the question, but not as detailed and as fully and as excited as he would have. Amazing. Because he had just witnessed it. So parents can do so much, much, much more. They can buy books, they can sit with the children, they can get even an older sibling to sit with them and pay that older sibling pocket money to teach the younger one. You could get a family member, and a cousin, an uncle who you know is learned to support. But what we must definitely not do is sit down and watch these children, because they get bored. They get bored, and that's why you'll see them on the streets. That's why you see them joining gangs. We need to be talking to them. We need to be speaking to them. Yes, but
you're not just talking about an education for the young people, for the children. We're almost talking about an education here for the parents themselves.
But
because if the parents are not aware, if they're not aware of all this and the opportunities, where do they get this?
But you know what? We say they're not aware. They are aware. And this is what I say to parents. And the parents hate me sometimes, because you know what? I'm wearing this now. This is definitely not my hair. Now, if parents need this, they know exactly where to go. They know, if they don't know where to get it, they know who to call. And some would even be as bold as I am, and they will stop someone and they say, you know what, I love your hair. Where did you get it from? They would ask questions. So if you do not know, then ask questions. I'm sure you've got someone, either a neighbor, a family member. You don't care if they think you're too forward. You ask the questions. This is your child now. So you ask the questions. Oh, I see your child goes to school in that lovely uniform. Where is that school? How did they get in? You ask questions. That's what I did. You have to ask questions. I didn't know anything about the schools in England. I was born in England. I moved to Nigeria. I came back at 16. And of course, I carried on with my life. I had kids. Now, as far as that's concerned, I was happy with the school down the road until I saw kids wearing their bolter hats and stuff. And I'm thinking, are they going to church on a weekday? And I said, no, they're going to school. I'm like, what kind of school do they go to looking smart like that? And I was told that there's something called independent schools, private schools. How do you get in? You work, you pass the exams, you pay your money, or you apply for bursaries. Well, trust me, Yemisi was doing all of that. So if I can do it, everyone can do it. Simple.
Yemi said, if she can do it, everyone can do it.
100%. Everybody can do it.
But
everybody can do it.
Is there such a thing as a born high achiever, or can every child be a high achiever?
That question is very similar to, are leaders born or are they made? Now, as far as I'm concerned, yes, some of them are born, because we've got the royal family. Obviously, they're born into it. But guess what? Leaders are absolutely made. High achievers are made. I've had kids come to me who the parents have thought, this is not going to work. It's not going to happen. She's struggling at school. How's she going to pass 11 plus? And I said, you know what? Let me be the judge of that. Let's do what we need to do. And that's what it's all about. You have to give that child a chance, because if you put it in your mind that the child is not going to make it, or you don't think they're good enough, then you're living in that belief. You have to change your mindset, and you have to give that child that opportunity. And one other thing that you have to remember is, for some of these children, it's not to say they're not capable. They just need that extra support. And that extra support could be maybe because they've got dyslexia that nobody is paying attention to, or even some parents don't pay attention to it, because some parents kind of know that something's going on, but they're in denial. So if you're in denial, if you're the parent and you're in denial, why should the teacher be concerned? You'll get the good teachers that would pay attention, but not every teacher would. So you need to listen to your child. You need to know your child. And you can only know your child by spending time with that child. This lockdown has really revealed a lot, because parents have had to work with their children see what they're doing. And we've had situations whereby parents are saying, oh my goodness, you don't know 10 plus 10. How come you don't know 10 plus 10? Are you for real? You don't know 10 plus 10. Well, unfortunately, he didn't know 10 plus 10. He had not known 10 plus 10. And you're just finding out that he does not know 10 plus 10. Meanwhile, he's been going to school. So you need to spend time with your children. You need to find out. Don't just listen to what the teachers are telling you to say, oh, he's okay. He's doing well at school. He helps the teachers. Now, your child might be a beautiful, good child at school in terms of tidying up and helping the teacher put the things away and things like that. He doesn't cause any trouble. That's fantastic. Of course, that's what we want. However, how is that child performing in terms of their education? That's the question you want to be asking. Is that child going to come out of school being able to read and write? Or by the time he's finished school, he still can't read and write, because that happens. So we need to really pay attention to what's going on with the children. Alex, are you there? Because I think I lost you.
Sorry about that. My headphones just went. So just keep talking.
Yes, I thought so. So yeah, so you know, we just need to do what we need to do. So my thing is, for every parent who is interested in their child moving to the next level, will have your child assessed, preferably when they're in year 4. Once they're in year 4, look for that assessor around you. There are plenty of them all over the country. All you need to do is Google it. Have your child assessed, find out exactly where they are. That way, you can then begin to ask questions. There's a book you need to get. It's called The Guide to Good Schools. That book would show you every school in the country, independent and grammar schools. You then have the opportunity to apply to these schools, make an application, ask for bursaries. On the application itself might not necessarily talk about the bursaries or the scholarship, but you can actually contact the school and ask for information about scholarships, about bursaries. Now, let me explain the two to you. Bursaries are means tested, which means it's based on your salary, it's based on your income, but they also then obviously take into account what you spend your money on. So they're not just looking at the fact that you're earning this big salary. They're looking at the fact that you have mortgage to pay, you've got bills to pay, you've got family members that you're looking after, you've got other children that you have to look after. So they take all of that into consideration. So that's something that they look at. Now with the scholarships, however, scholarships are based on ability. Perhaps in academics. They also look at sports. I mean, most of the kids play sports these days. So there's a scholarship for sports, scholarship for drama, scholarship for music. So they take all of that into consideration. Now, don't beat yourself up and say, oh my goodness, because I earn this much money, they're not going to give it to me. No. What you need to do is still make that application. Ask the questions. They do not necessarily shut you down. They do not necessarily cut you off. You still have to make that application, and they will then tell you if you're qualified or not. In most cases, you are. You might not get 100%, you might not get 90%, but you might get 50, you might get 40, you might even get 20, you might even get 100%. So if you don't try, you wouldn't know. So definitely you must go for it. I think Alex is waiting to talk to me somewhere there. Alex, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you here now?
Are you picking me up? I'm not picking up my sound at the moment.
I'm picking you up.
I'm not picking up my sound at the moment. Yeah, I just can't. My sound just disappeared just now, so I'm trying to get it back. So if you can hear me,
I can hear you. Answer
this question: Is education the key to a university education? Let me rephrase that. Is the high achievers to be a high achiever? Do you need a university education?
100% no. Not at all. To be a high achiever, you could be a plumber and be a high achiever. You could be a builder and be a high achiever. You could be whatever you want to be and be a high achiever. But basic education, my point here is you need a basic education. What's the point in being a plumber and you can't calculate your fee? you have to give somebody an invoice and they have to pay you. You have to calculate your tax. Yes, you might get an accountant, but it'll be good for you to know what's going on. So basic education is absolutely necessary. But in terms of being a high achiever in what you do, clearly you could be. But my thing is, for you to be a high achiever, you have to put in a lot of effort. You have to put in a lot of grit into it. You have to have zeal for what you do. My passion obviously is for every child to have an education. However, like I said earlier, not everyone is cut out for education. Not everyone is cut out for university. What I love about this country is the fact that, and well, I'm sure it's all over the world, I'm sure, apprenticeship is fantastic, which means you actually learn a trade and you get paid for it, and you're learning as you get paid. Now, most of the apprenticeships now, in fact, most of the young people now are going for apprenticeship. Are you back? You seem to be back. Good. Right.
I'm back. The sound has come back.
You're back.
You know, sometimes when good things are happening, you know, something has to happen to try to break the flow, you know?
Oh, yes. I'm with you.
It didn't break your flow. Continue.
Yes. Now, apprenticeship, I like apprenticeship because even if you decide you don't want to go to university and get a debt and student loan or whatever it is, you can go the apprentice route, which means the company that you go into pays for your schooling. You still go to school. You might have to go to university twice a week or something like that, but you're learning at the same time and you're not incurring a debt. So definitely you still are a high achiever, because by the time you come out of your apprenticeship, it's probably going to take you 5 years. So if you've done 3 years of university or 5 years of university, in those 5 years, you've actually learned what your course is all about. Law firms are doing it, banks are doing it, investment banks are doing it, a whole lot of companies are doing it now. So definitely, as a high achiever, you can go the university route, you can go the apprenticeship route, you can decide you just want to go into work, but you have to be totally committed and dedicated to what you're doing if you really want to be a success at what you're doing. So yeah, I believe to become a high achiever does not necessarily mean unless you go to university. Definitely not. There are plenty of people who haven't gone to university and have done well. But my thing is, basic education is absolutely necessary. Education is lifelong. I mean, I just completed a program. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I've just completed a program. And I decided to go and do it because I have the ability to do it and I have the zeal to do it. So definitely, education is key. It's absolutely key. It speaks volumes. So yeah.
But you see, education is key, and what you have demonstrated to us today is that there has to be a clear navigation. Someone has to help the young people, the children, navigate the system. And if people haven't got your drive and your push to navigate the system, how can they do it? Because it's so much to do on top of normal life.
Well, you know what, Alex? You know, the beauty of it is when you made that decision to have that child, you made that decision knowing fully well that you want to give them absolutely the best and absolutely everything. I've met young parents who would spend thousands of pounds throwing birthday parties for these kids. I've met parents who would spend plenty money, good money on designer shoes and designer bags and designer whatever it is. That's fantastic. But if you can have that zeal to do those things for the kids, I mean, the question is, why do we have shops that sell baby Versace shoes, baby Versace jackets? Because some people are buying it, and it's not just and believe me, it's not the rich people buying it. That's the amazing thing, because there's a difference between rich and wealth. It's not the wealthy people doing it. The wealthy people do not spend money foolishly like that. They invest it. They invest it in their children, in their grandchildren. It's a legacy. But the rich people, or even the not so rich people, will spend this money on this kind of things. Invest in your child's life, giving your child an education, and you don't have to know how to teach your child. I'm not saying you should sit down and teach your child. I'm saying spend that money to get the expert to do it. Get yourself someone who will support your child.
So you're talking about, you just said you're going to invest in your child, spend money to invest in your child.
That's
Now, when
right.
we talk about investments, we're looking, say, okay, we want a 12, a 15, a 20% return on our monies. How do you measure the return on a child when you invest in?
Wow, that's a big one. So you're saying to me that they're going to place a value on their child? Of course not. The fact is, if you give that child an education, the prayer of every parent is that their child will not die before them. Obviously, yes. Right.
Yes.
So when they go on that sick bed, they want to have, well, I definitely want to have that peace of mind, knowing fully well that I have left this child in this world that all of us say, oh my goodness, this world is something else. It's a something else world, yes, but I've left that child in a position whereby they are good to go. They're not going to suffer. They're not going to, I'm happy that I've done the best that I can do for my child, and I've left them in that place where I know they can only make it better. They can only make it better for themselves and for the next generation to come. And that's what we're investing in. Because when we invest in one child, we're not just investing in that one child. We're investing in many, many more children. Because one, they're going to have children. Their children are going to have friends. So you're going to impact a whole lot of other people. And that's what it's all about.
So you're talking about generational investment.
Absolutely.
Generational investment to get a generational blessing.
Absolutely, to get that generational blessing.
Wow. Okay.
That continues.
Let me go to some of the comments coming through from the public. I think I've got some comments here. Yep, I got. Let me just see them, what they're saying.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Well said, Yemi. Wow. This is absolutely awesome information.
I know who's that.
Yemi is certainly very sound and very well informed. Man, you got a fan club out there. Well done, Yemi. Wow, you've got a serious fan club out there, just edging you on with the information that you shared. But and this is what I wanted to get to in you, because where you've certainly hit upon a model that you've adopted and working this model for your children and plus other children who you've seen the results of. You've seen the investment pay off. You've seen young people become adults and become serious contributors to the mainstream society.
Absolutely.
Where did you see this model in place? Where did you see this model in place before?
Well, my mother, thank God she's still alive. I was going to say God bless her soul. My mother, she's 88 now. But obviously my mom was, she had a school. She owned a school. And all I saw from her was education. She educated us. She educated many, many children around, in Nigeria. And it's not something that I just assumed was normal. I thought it was normal for kids to have that kind of education. So, of course, when I had my kids, I just expected that to happen. They went to school. And when they went to school, all they did was, what's it called now? Learning through play. And I was thinking, what's all this learning through play? I don't understand this. Just playing. Like, there was no work going on. So
too much playing,
man. Too much playing, man. And I was thinking, this can't be right. So obviously, when I got to understand the system, then I thought, well, that's okay. They need to play. That's fair enough. And then if the school's making them play, then I'll make them work. So it's not an issue. So there was that balance. So they go to school to play, and then they come home and they work. And that was it. So for me, it was a continuous thing. So it was putting them through those hoops that they had to go through. You study. And then I began to realize that actually, hold on a second. When we talk about children playing, not all the children are playing. The books that I was using for my kids that I had to buy, there's some books called the bond assessment books. I bought those books and I was using those books for my kids at home. And I realized when I got to understand the independent sector, and I realized that the independent schools actually use those books in school for the kids. So can you see the difference? So the books that I was paying for, that I knew I needed to use to prepare my kids to be able to write the so-called exams, were the books that these independent schools from as young as age 4, 5 were actually using for their kids, for the students in these independent schools, right from that age. How can my kid that goes to the school down the road, who is just made to sit on the carpet, because that was what was happening, sitting on the carpet watching TV, how is that going to compare with this kid that is being taught bond assessment from age 5.
Wow.
It's not going to happen.
5.
From age 5.
From the age of 5 years of age.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, from age 5. They're already doing the bond assessment. And my kid was, in fact, my son came home and he said to me, he said, Mom, you need to get me out of that school because all they do is making me sit on the carpet and watch TV while the others are learning sounds. By now he was reading.
Wow.
So obviously, what did I do? I mean, this was my last son and there was a school across the way. I said, you know what, you can go there. I'm tired. I can't be stressed. And then I realized that it's not going to happen. So I got the older one. I said, right, go on the internet and find me the best school in England. He did.
Wow.
He was all the way in South Kensington. I enrolled, I got him in there, and that's what I had to do. So sometimes, honestly, it's not easy. I get that. But sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we brought them into this world because we chose to. We didn't, we had the option. I keep telling my kids that, you know what, you're here because I chose for you to be here. So we had the option and we have brought them here. And if we brought them here, then we must do right by them. It's not fair if we don't do right by them. Do you understand? They live in a world where they're going to face so much trouble, so much problem, so much issues. So we must make it a little bit softer for them by at least giving them the best. So if they've got the best, then they can decide. I mean, I tell my kids that I'm not raising you to become employees. Of course not. My children have to be employers. That is what it has to be. I believe in servant leadership. Don't get me wrong. I believe in servant leadership, which means initially you go out there, you work so you can learn. You have what they call transferable skills, but the goal is for you to become an employer. That's how you can be empowered, so you can empower other people. Do you follow me?
You're raising a generation of employers, non-employees.
100%. No, not at all.
You're raising a generation of employers, non-employees.
Mm-hmm.
You're raising people who are going to come and change the landscape.
Yes, we're raising champions. That's the whole point. Every boy and girl out there are champions, and we need to allow them understand that they're champions. And the only way that we can do this is by investing in them and believing in them. I think it's really important. I'll give you an example. This was a few years back.
Before you jump into the example, because I wanted to ask you earlier, what prompted the book? Greatness is in me and my child. What prompted that book? Because the first time I see you mention that name, and then you drop the book and go, wow, this is amazing. What prompted greatness?
Right. Okay. So, Greatness in Me and My Child is a book that I wrote about 4 years ago now. And to be fair, I wrote the book because I do talks, and the talks that I do is to enlighten parents about schools, about scholarships, about bursaries, about everything that they need for schools. I encourage them to ask me questions so I can sort of answer all those questions that are burning in their minds, that they like you rightly said, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go. I'm here. So I said to myself that, well, I can't reach everyone. I can't talk to everyone. I'm not invited to literally every talk that goes on, but the ones that I'm invited to, believe me, I will be there. Even if it's inconvenient, I will do that. Why? Because of the children. So I decided to write the book. That, okay, you know what? Everything that I've done concerning bringing up my children, getting them into the schools that I got them into and stuff like that, and other children I've put in there. In fact, I got some of the children, some of the other kids that I've worked with, I got them to write in the book. So they wrote their story, what they felt it was like.
Wow.
They're all
that
in
is
there.
Amazing.
You have kids that, well, I call them kids because to me they're still kids. They're now in their 30s. But when they came to me, some of them were age 4, age 9, whatever it was. They all wrote in the book, because I felt it was necessary for people to see their story. That okay, this is where they started from, and this is where they are now.
Wow.
And it's also it's a self-leadership book. Literally, it kind of empowers you. It's a book that I love to read. I read it sometimes and I'm thinking, wow, I would have loved to have that book to read when I was raising my kids as well. But obviously, they probably was out there. I wasn't aware, but it's out there now. So if anyone wants to get a copy of it, it's on Amazon, so it's available. But
so you're recommending parents right now buy that book. Greatness is in me and my child. It's
100%.
fundamental.
Absolutely.
Fundamental.
Absolutely, it is. Yes, it is. It is.
And what is the earliest age do you think that kids should be, or children, we should start feeding that kind of stuff into their minds? From what's the earliest age?
From when they're in your womb. That's the earliest age. I'm telling you. I'll tell you about. I did it. I watched a program, and the woman was pregnant with her child, and she was playing the piano. And when she had the baby, she realized that when she played the piano, the baby jumped. When she had the baby, obviously the baby had picked up whatever he had picked up. But by the time the child was, I think about 2, 3 or something like that, the boy was good. He was playing the piano. It's you can Google it. It's on there. So I said, I'm going to try the same thing. So when I was pregnant with my last son, I bought him books and I began to read to him whilst he was in the womb. So I'll lay hands on him and I will read the book out. That was that. By the time he was born, I continued to read the book to him. By the time he was 6 months old, he recognized the book. He could count 1 to 5. He couldn't speak, but he would use his fingers to show you 1 to 5.
No. Say that again. By the time he was what?
By the time he was 6 months old.
6 months old. He recognized the book.
He recognized the book. So I'll give you an example how he would recognize this book. I would deliberately put the book to his left or to his right, and then I would start saying things like, "Oh, where's Mayowa's book? Where's Mayowa's so book? Whatever book it is," and you'll see him pushing himself towards the book. Honestly, by the time he was 6 months old, he will count 1 to 5. He couldn't speak, so he'll use his fingers to show you 1 to 5. By the time he was 2, he was reading fluently. Absolutely. He obviously didn't understand the words, but he could read it. He didn't, for example, he wouldn't know what international means, but he could read the word international. And that's because, I started really early. So there's no time limit. You start as when you're comfortable to do it, because I was comfortable. In fact, I couldn't wait to do it, but not everybody feels like that. So, but whenever you're ready, but I just believe every child needs to be given that opportunity without a shadow of doubt.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Yemi today about how to grow high achievers in our education system. Yemi is saying that we need to start this from in the womb. There's me thinking, 3, 4, 5 years of age. No, she said, this must happen in the womb. You must be reading books to your children in the womb. And when you start to educate from inside of the womb, when they come out, they will start to recognize sounds, they recognize things that you're saying to them because of what you've tuned into them. This is amazing. Nothing like this is taught in our education system. Nothing like this is taught. So if there was a sentence that you could say to the world, to mothers out there, to parents out there, about how to grow their children to become a high achiever, what would that be, Yemi?
Well, if it's a word, I would say Alex, if it's a word, I would simply say bless. That would be the word. But if it's a sentence or a paragraph, I would say, please do not give up. Please put your own problems aside, because we all have them. Trust me. Put them aside. Focus on that child, because that's exactly what I did. I focused on my children 100%. I gave them the full focus. And by doing that, you have invested. Investment is not just money. Investment is time. Investment is listening to them. Investment is making sure you are there for that parents' meeting. When there's a parents' meeting, parents need to be there. It's not the one that you say, oh, I missed it. You can't afford to miss it. You need to know what they're saying, what they're thinking about your child. You're the one that can correct them. I used to say to my son every morning when I drop him at school, I said, Maiwa, you're the best. And he believed it. And then one day his teacher said to him that he should stop saying that because he's not, because there are other people that are better than him. Yes, the teacher told him to stop saying that. So he came back and he said to me, Mom, but you said I'm the best. And my teacher said I'm not. And I'm like, you best look in my face right now. Who is your mother? And he said, you're my mother. I said, do not ever believe what anyone else tells you. You must believe what I tell you. I say to you, you're the best. Listen to this. A few weeks or whatever it was down the road from that time, they had what they call the internal assessment test. This boy scored above the class average. We went for the parents' meeting to be given the results. The three of us sat there. And this woman looked him straight in the face. I said, oh my goodness, you're the best. You're the best. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. And when we came out of the classroom, I called my son. I pulled him close to me. I said, did you hear what your teacher said? He said, yeah.
Hey, say that again for me. She looked him in the face and said, you're the best.
She looked him in the face and said to him, you're the best. Maiwa, you're the best. And that's it. You have to affirm your child. Do you understand? You have to affirm your child, regardless of what you see. You have to affirm your child because there's no one else who's going to do it. That was the teacher. So you cannot rely on your teacher to affirm your child. You have to affirm your child yourself and make sure, because they will believe you. My son believed me. And I thank God for that because it's important. And if anyone tries to say otherwise, you continue to tell them that you can do it because you have to keep encouraging your children so they can be the best. We don't want them on the streets. I don't want them in the prison. Doing what?
Your daily confession into your child, you are the best.
100%.
Your daily confession into your 100%. Child, you are the best. Absolutely. And the teacher thought she could go against that. Huh? The teacher thought that she could go against that. Mothers, are you hearing this for parents? Are you hearing this? When you sow into your kids, when you feed into their minds, when you feed daily into their minds, no one can tell them anything different.
Absolutely.
And they believe it. Because you said, "Who? I'm your mother. I'm your mother."
I'm your mother. Trust me. I bet he's watching now.
Now, we just had one comment come from someone on Facebook, and let me just read this one to you. They've said, Yemi said earlier she started High Achievers 25 years ago. Does she still work with kids to prepare them for those top schools she mentioned? Do you still work with kids now?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do still work with them. My daughter, who obviously was part of the High Achievers, she's now a big woman. She's 33. She's got her own 2 kids. She now runs the program 100% better than I ever did. This is her business behind me, Little Scholars. And yes, so we still do. We still get those kids into this.
So you've managed to pass High Achievers from one generation to the next in your lifetime.
That is the whole point. It's called legacy, living legacy. That's it. Yes.
Amazing. So what's the web address for Little Achievers?
It's Little Scholars.
Little Scholars. Sorry.
Yes, Little Scholars House.
LittleScholarsHouse.com. Okay.
Yes.
LittleScholarsHouse.com. So, and this isn't an actual place that you go to on a weekend, a day.
It is, but we've covered it all online now. So yes,
it's all online now.
Yes, I'll send you the information.
Right, brilliant. That is, Yemi, it's been, despite the challenges today, it's been amazing talking to you. You have such depth of conviction in what you're doing, in the contribution that you're making to our community, to our Black community. And there was something else that you told me the other day, which I wanted you to expand on. Okay. And you talked about some things you were doing after the whole thing with Black Lives Matter, the campaigns that happened across the world. You mentioned some young people who actually wrote to their schools, talked about their experiences at schools, and you started some actions.
Yeah.
What is that? Explain it.
Don't get me started on that.
No, we haven't got another hour. But just give us 5 minutes of that.
Okay, well, basically what it was is some of the young people who had obviously gone to these independent schools had faced a whole lot of racism, which was indeed horrible. Now, when this happened, what I did is I wrote a statement and I sent it to some schools, some of these independent schools, and I sent it to the main body, which is the Independent Schools Council. And I asked them to please put a statement out refuting it, because we do not obviously want to believe that we've got racism going on in schools and it's acceptable. It's 100% unacceptable. And they've listened to this. I'm really happy about this because as I'm also part of the 50-50 Conservative Women Organization, I'm the director of diversity there. I have a role to play to make sure that our children are not being victimized. And one of the things that I've been blessed to be able to do is to support all these schools with in diversity, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the policies, making sure that the curriculum actually features diversity, and just making sure that there's a good representation of us. What's the point? Hold on one second, Alex. What's the point in having all these kids that we've just talked about in these amazing schools, and the only representation that they're seeing are cleaners?
Wow.
That can be right. Are you telling me that you're raising these kids to become cleaners, to become, I have nothing against cleaners, don't get me wrong. And I have nothing against menial jobs, because somebody has to do it. But my thing is, as much as we have black people that are cleaners, we have black people that are physics teachers, history teachers, high achievers, literally.
Yeah.
You understand? So why can't we have those people in our schools so that our children can see those people and say to themselves that I don't want to be a doctor, I don't want to be a lawyer, I want to be a teacher like Miss whoever. Why can't we have that? And we need to have that, not just in the state sector, but also in the independent sector. The governors, who are the governors? The governors have to have my representation. How can you support me as a black child in that school if all the governors are white, male Englishmen? Woo. You can't understand my culture.
We have to influence every aspect of society now.
100%.
We have to. And the independent schools are there waiting for our contribution. Am I right? They're waiting for our contribution. They want it.
And we do contribute. And we do contribute.
Must have it.
And we're just asking for it to be recognized. And that's what we're talking about. And they're doing, and they're listening, and they're doing it. So I have to say that I'm very pleased that they're very much, I've been talking to them. I've had meetings upon meetings with them, and they're listening, and they want the support, they want the help. They just want to do what is right. And we need to support them in that as well. So yes, well done to everyone.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had an awesome speaker on today, a prolific speaker. Very passionate about what she does. Very passionate about what she does. Very passionate about what she does, about how she does it, and about who she wants to influence in the world, and about making that contribution, that bigger and better contribution in every aspect of life to grow high achievers. And having a university education is good. Having a university education is great, but you don't have to have a university education to be a high achiever. It's ingrained in you from a very early age. And this lady says, from the womb, greatness starts from the womb. Greatness does not start when you stand up on the stage and make a speech. Greatness starts from in the womb, because you're articulating that individual to their best potential. Oh man, you know, we can all this right now. We can't. You sound so much, you know.
You're welcome.
I've been touched by what you said and what you're doing, and your details of how people can make contact with you is. How can people make contact with you, Yemi?
I'll give you my email address. I think you've got my email address. Okay, so it's highachievers.schools@gmail.com.
highachievers.schools@gmail.com. highachievers.schools. Make contact. Make contact with Yemi. Find out how you can support what she's doing. Find out how you can support what she's doing and be a contributor. Become a high achiever yourselves for the next generation. Thank you so much. Folks, time is... Wow. You see, man.
You're back.
Right, so we're saying goodbye.
Thank you, Alex.
We're saying goodbye. Thank you for coming on the show. And before you go, let me just go back to our sponsor before we disappear. You are listening to the Message Talk Show and podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and podcast with host Alex Gordon. Yes, the Message Talk Show podcast on a Thursday, 11 o'clock on a weekly basis. So connect with us, send your emails to support@masteryourmessage.co.uk. Connect with us and be featured on the Message Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you, everybody.